Hello, everybody, and welcome into episode 21 of Black and Gold Weekly. It's your host, John, here. And the Boston Bruins are in full playoff swing as they are in the midst of a tremendous first-round series against the Washington Capitals. We have a lot to talk about today. I originally planned on having a guest on for this episode, but unfortunately the guest had to back out at the last minute. Something came up, so it is just me this week. But that doesn't mean it isn't going to be a great episode. As I said, we have a lot to talk about as the Bruins are currently taking on the Capitals in a really awesome first-round series that is 3 games in as of now. And looks like it definitely has the potential to possibly go the full 7. So, before everything gets started here, I just want to give a huge thank you to everyone at Black and Gold Productions. Mark Allred and the entire team here at B&G Productions have been incredible. This show would not be happening without them. So a big thank you to them. I also want to bring some attention to the 3 links down in the description of this video. The top link is for Boston Bruins apparel. The second link is for NHL team apparel, any team, whatever you want. And the third link is for NCAA college apparel. If you are in the market for any of those things, it would be greatly appreciated if you could check out those links. They have a wide variety of products, the hats, shirts, sweatshirts, sweatpants, t-shirts, long sleeves, all the usual stuff, as well as a lot of other accessories and great other products as well. So it would really be awesome if you guys could check that out if you are looking to buy any of those things, whether it's Bruins, NHL, or NCAA college. So to start the show here, the first thing that I want to look at is what has happened over the past week. And of course, that is the first round playoff series against the Washington Capitals, which we are now 3 games into. Want to take a look here as Boston currently has a 2-1 series lead over the Capitals. And let's break this down by game here as game 1, which took place on Saturday, May 15th, just a few nights ago, was a 3-2 win for the Washington Capitals, which came in overtime. Overtime is going to be a word that I say a lot in this episode, as every single game so far, as you can see, has gone beyond the original 60 minutes. Washington took game 1 in overtime on a goal by Nick Dowd on home ice to take a 1-0 series lead. Wasn't a bad game by the Bruins by any stretch. It wasn't their best game either. It was very evenly matched, though. And overall, this series has been extremely evenly matched. And at the end of the day, Washington was able to get that final goal and come out on top by 1. But don't worry, because the Boston Bruins bounced back in game 2. That was a 4-3 overtime win for Boston. Goal coming just less than a minute into the OT period. Brad Marchand ripping one in, and after a beautiful cross-ice pass from Matt Grzelcyk, and that gave Boston a big win on the road in Game 2. Even the series up at 1, they were able to steal one in Washington, and it put them in very good shape going into Game 3, back on home ice. And in the first game back in Boston, which took place on Wednesday night, Game 3, the Bruins came away with a 3-2 win in double overtime. That's right, this one went to double overtime. Craig Smith took advantage of a miscommunication between Washington goaltender Ilya Samsonov and defenseman Justin Schultz. They each thought the other one was going to play the puck. Neither of them played the puck. Craig Smith came in, stole it behind the net, and wrapped it around just inside the post before Samsonov could get back into position. And he won the game for the Bruins by a score of 3-2. And that was a massive win at home now to give the Bruins a 2-1 series lead over the Capitals. They are now sitting in pretty good shape here as the lower seed, up 2-1. Game 4 will also be on home ice before they have to go back to Washington. And they have a chance to take a very, very nice 3-1 lead if they can win on Friday night at home against the Capitals. They could push the Caps to the brink here and force them into a must-win Game 5. Or, which we could see, is the Capitals come back and take a road game in Boston and even this series up at 2, and then it will go back to Washington 2-2 and basically become a best-of-3 series in Games 5, 6, and 7. So, obviously, a very, very tight series here overall. It's been a lot of fun to watch. It's been incredible hockey, very, very physical. And I have to say, this is one of the most evenly matched playoff series that I can remember watching in 20 years now of watching hockey. I don't ever remember a series being this close all the way through. For the first 3 full games, no team at any point has had a multiple goal lead in this series yet. We are a full 3 games completed in this series, and a team has never led by more than 1. And between 1-goal leads in tie games, that's been the entire series so far. Washington and Boston are going back and forth. There's very, very little separating these two teams. It's been an incredibly hard-fought series. It's been an incredible physical series. Again, just 3 games in. We still have a ways to go in this one. And I'm sure that that's going to continue to ramp up and get even bigger and better as the series goes along. But there's been so much great things to talk about here. This has just been playoff hockey at its absolute best between these two teams. Some players for the Boston Bruins that I think have really stood out in this series and have played very, very well. One of those is Craig Smith, who actually leads the Bruins in points with 1 goal, which was the game winner in Game 3 in double overtime, and 2 assists for 3 points so far in the series and a +1 rating. Craig Smith, David Krejci, and Taylor Hall, that line has had a very, very good series for the Bruins and is a big reason why Boston is leading in this series right now. Speaking of Taylor Hall, he has 2 goals in this series already. He scored in Game 2 and he scored again in Game 3, and they were both very important goals for the Bruins as well. So Taylor Hall, obviously, since coming over the trade deadline, played spectacular down the stretch and was a huge factor for the Bruins heading into these playoffs. That has continued in the playoffs, and he continues to be a big-time factor for the Bruins in the postseason. He's got 2 goals, 2 big goals for Boston. Another player that has 2 goals that you wouldn't have necessarily expected coming in is Jake DeBrusk after an abysmal regular season. Probably the worst year for Jake DeBrusk in the NHL was this season. He has 2 goals in the first 2 games here for the Bruins. He did not score in Game 3, although I thought that the third line was still very noticeable and very active in Game 3. He scored in Game 1 and he scored in Game 2, and Jake DeBrusk has really shown up in the playoffs this year for Boston, and I think if he's able to help this team go on a deep run, I think that a lot of the regular season troubles for DeBrusk this year will be forgiven if he's able to have a significant impact in the postseason, and he certainly has so far. We'll see if that continues moving forward, but 2 goals already for DeBrusk in the series, and he has really shown up and been ready to play in all 3 games so far this series. So DeBrusk is definitely somebody that I think deserves a lot of credit for his performance so far. Charlie McAvoy is another one. He's playing over 28 minutes a game in the playoffs so far. and he has been absolutely phenomenal. He hasn't scored yet, but he does have a couple of assists. He's a +3. He's been spectacular defensively. McAvoy is doing it all on the back end for the Bruins. Not very flashy, but very, very effective. And he is clearly the Bruins' best defenseman and one of the best young defensemen in the NHL, and he is playing at an extremely high level right now. He's taken a lot of punishment physically, but he's gotten back up every single time. It hasn't really worn on his game at all, at least so far, and he has looked absolutely spectacular for the Bruins as well throughout the first 3 games of this series. So, another guy, Brad Marchand. Gotta talk about Brad Marchand. Obviously, the game winner in Game 2. He scored again in Game 3. He has a couple goals for the Bruins in this series. He's a +1 through 3 games. He's got a couple points. He's been playing, obviously the double overtime game pushed up ice time, but he's playing over 22.5 minutes a game. He plays in all situations: power play, penalty kill, 5-on-5, 4-on-4, everything. Marchand has been very, very good for the Bruins so far. The only thing about Marchand is he has been a little bit undisciplined at times. He's taken quite a few penalties already, and some of them have not been the smartest. He's got 6 penalty minutes in the series. He's taken 3 minors, and they haven't necessarily been the smartest penalties, to say the least. So, a big thing for Marchand is not putting your team in a situation where they have to kill off penalties or kill off power plays for the Washington Capitals, because the power play for the Caps is very, very good. So that with Marchand's got to clean that up. But as far as on the ice and his performance, he's been active, he's been scoring, and he's looked good for the Bruins. So another guy that is a big reason why Boston has this series lead. And of course, you have to talk about the goaltending. Tuukka Rask has been good for the Bruins in this series. I thought he played extremely well in Game 3, and I think that Game 2, really, there were times where Washington was absolutely dominating Game 2, and Tuukka kept them in that game, and that is why they were able to come back late in the third and ultimately win the game in overtime. So, while yes, there have been a couple goals in on Rask where you probably would like him to make a save, particularly in Game 1, that long shot from the point that went through like 6 bodies and ended up going between his legs. He couldn't see the puck. I don't think he had any idea that puck was even making it all the way through all those bodies in front. But you'd probably like him to, be in a position where he's going to block that no matter what if it does get through. And he wasn't, but you really can't blame Tuukka Rask for many of these Washington goals. And he's made some massive saves as well. So I don't think there's any reason to be questioning Tuukka Rask at this point. I think he's had a very good series up to thus far. And the Bruins have a lead in the series against a team that is a higher seed than them. So there's really not a whole lot to complain about here. They are giving it their all. They're putting up a great fight, and we'll see if they're able to keep this going and pull out this series win. It's an extremely tough, hard-fought series between these two teams. It's going to be right down to the end. I think this series is going to go 7 games myself, but obviously we don't know that for sure yet. I can't predict the future, but it's been awesome so far, and I certainly hope that continues. So, just wanted that with that, just taking a look back on the series so far. Coming up, we're going to take a look at an article from a colleague of mine at Black and Gold Productions for the Black and Gold Hockey website, and which is looking at the Bruins series so far, or recapping after the first couple of games, and then we're going to take a look at what they were saying about the Bruins after the first couple games and see if those same things applied in Game 3 or not. So that will be coming up next. Okay, everybody. So I have an article pulled up here by Black and Gold Productions writer Joey Partridge. You can find this on blackandgoldhockey.com. It's series thoughts. This was written after game 2, after Brad Marchand scored the game winner in overtime, and the Bruins were going back onto home ice with this series all tied up at 1. And I want to take a look at some of the things that he talks about in this article after game 2 and see if they still applied to game 3, and if those things tend to or seem to be continuing for the Bruins, or if there was a little bit of a difference in game 3 and we might not see that keep up the entire series. But I do want to take a look at this. Again, this is available on blackandgoldhockey.com. And this is from writer Joey Partridge. His series thoughts: Bruins head home all knotted up. So this was after game 2. And let's take a look here at what Joey talks about following. So the first thing here that he goes into, bottom 6 scoring. So obviously, bottom 6 scoring was an issue for the Boston Bruins all season long. But so far in the playoffs, they have actually gotten very good production out of the bottom 6, especially in the first 2 games. Jake DeBrusk scored 1 goal in game 1 and 1 goal again in game 2. He's got 2 goals on the playoffs. Nick Ritchie scored for the Bruins in game 1. Charlie Coyle, while he hasn't gotten a goal yet, I think has been very, very effective and noticeable on the ice, and he's playing significantly better so far in the playoffs than he did in the regular season. Fourth line hasn't gotten on the board offensively, but they've done a good job on the penalty kill. I still think the fourth line can bring more to the table as far as just having an impact on the game. I don't think it's been the best series so far for the fourth line, but the third line, I think, has been very, very good. And I think that Coyle, DeBrusk, and Ritchie have all done a great job of making an impact on this series so far and looking good. Now, their goals came in the first 2 games. They did not score in game 3. The goals in game 3 came from Taylor Hall, Brad Marchand, and Craig Smith, all who are top 6 players for the Bruins. However, I do think that the bottom 6 was still very effective in game 3. Obviously, Corrali, Wagner, Lazar, a physical line, fourth line for the Bruins. There were times during game 3 where I don't think, they were at their best. I think they had some issues getting pinned in their own zone for periods of time and things like that. But there were other times I thought they were doing a good job of getting it on the forecheck. They did a good job of laying the body. And they're all good penalty killers, which is huge because Boston has given the Washington Capitals a number of power play opportunities in this series, and the penalty kill has had to come up big. As for the third line, while they did not score in game 3, I thought they still had a very, very good game. Like I said, Charlie Coyle has been very visible on the ice. He's had an impact. He's been out there taking the puck, getting it on the forecheck, making plays. DeBrusk and Ritchie on the wings, I think, were very noticeable in the game. And while they weren't able to pot anything in the net in game 3, I still think they had a very solid game. So, bottom 6 has been good for the Bruins so far in this series. Goaltending. Okay, this is one that everybody is always talking about. Tuukka Rask, like I said early in the show, has been very, very good in this series for the Boston Bruins. There were times in Game 2 where he absolutely had to keep this team alive because the Capitals were dominating play at points in the second game of the series. The only reason Boston was able to come back and win Game 2 is because Tuukka Rask kept them in it. And obviously, there were some a goal or two in the series so far that you might have wanted Rask to have, but overall, he has been phenomenal. And anybody blaming Tuukka Rask or saying that Rask hasn't been good enough in this series, I just think is flat out wrong. He's been very, very good in this series. Pretty much as Joey puts it, Rask has been all you can ask of in the first 2 games, and I think that absolutely applies to game number 3 as well. He has been all that you could ask of. It's really been a solid series for Tuukka Rask so far. He hasn't given up a lot of goals. And he's making a lot of big saves as well. Again, like it's talked about here, he's been screened. There's been a lot of goals on deflections. I think most of the Capitals' goals have come on deflections, which again, there's really not a whole lot the goaltender can do about that. He's played great. He's made a lot of big-time saves to keep the Bruins in games. And this last line of the paragraph here puts it perfectly. He is not the issue. If there's any issues with the Bruins right now, Tuukka Rask is not it. He has played very well so far. The Bruins' top 6. So in the first, in game 1, obviously the Bruins' top 6 was not very good. And that was everyone's kind of big complaint about the Bruins, other than the people hating on Tuukka Rask, even though game 1's loss was not Tuukka Rask's fault. The top 6 was the big issue for the Bruins in game 1. They did not get anything going offensively. They did not have nearly enough shots on goal. They did not have nearly enough puck possession. In game 2, this top 6 came out ready to go with a much, much better effort. And especially the top line for the Bruins, I think in game 2, obviously Hall did score a goal in game 2, but I think the top line for the Bruins, Marchand, Bergeron, and Pastrnak, showed a significant improvement in game 2, and that ended up with Brad Marchand scoring the game-winning goal in overtime of game 2 and winning the game for the Boston Bruins, which was absolutely huge. And their top 6 clearly played significantly better in the second game than it did in the first. In game 3, it continued. It continued in game 3. I think they may have even gotten a little bit better. I think that the top 6, as they were down here in game 1, not a good game. They brought the level of play up in game 2. And then in game 3, they got even better. And the Taylor Hall line came alive in game 3. The best game for them in the series by far, so to this point. Obviously, the top line did well again, too, but I think it was the Krejci, Hall, Smith, their time to shine in game number 3 of this series. And Hall scored the first goal for the Bruins. The game-winning goal in double overtime was scored by Craig Smith. And overall, that second line had an incredible game in game number 3. The top line was good as well, but I think they were a little bit better maybe in game 2. And then the second line was better in game 3. But overall, I think that the Bruins' top players have gotten better as this series has gone along. And that is very, very important for the Boston Bruins, who need those players to be their best. Physicality. This was always going to be a huge, huge part of this series. It's Bruins and Capitals. These teams do not like each other. They play extremely physical games against each other. And that has certainly been the case in this series, as it's been very, very hard hitting. There's been a lot of scrums after whistles. We haven't had a full-fledged drop your gloves fight yet, but there's been a lot of chirping, there's been a lot of scrums, and it's been a very, very physical series so far. The Bruins are outmatched physically by the Capitals. Just based on how the Capitals are built, the Bruins do not have the roster to go hit for hit with the Washington Capitals. They just don't. They don't have that roster. Washington might be the toughest lineup in the NHL. Not only do they have Tom Wilson in the top 6, but their other top guys like Alex Ovechkin and TJ Oshie are very physical players. Then in their bottom 6, they have an extremely physical fourth line led by Garnet Hathaway and Nick Dowd, who are never shy about throwing their bodies around and never shy about mixing it up after the whistle either. Then that's not even taking into account their defense, which has Brendan Dillon, who I think is a it's kind of underrated how tough of a player Brendan Dillon is. He's a very big body, a big hitter, and not afraid to mix it up as well. And then obviously Zdeno Chara on the back end. As Bruins fans, we all know what Chara brings to the table physically. I don't know if there is a tougher lineup in the NHL than the Washington Capitals. The Boston Bruins are not going to go hit for hit with the Washington Capitals. However, I do think that the Bruins are capable of holding their own against the Washington Capitals. And I think they've done that for the most part in this series. Now, there have been points in games, especially in game 1 and in the start of game 2, for sure. Especially early in this series. There were times where the Capitals were just absolutely dominating the Bruins physically. I think as this series has gone along, particularly in the second part of Game 2, and I thought in Game 3 as well, there was a good amount of pushback from the Boston Bruins, and that is what you want to see, pushback. You may not be able to outmatch them physically, but you can certainly push back. You can certainly stick up for yourselves. You can certainly lay some hits of your own. And that's what the Bruins have been able to do as this series has gone along. And I think overall they've done a good job of that. They have pushed back. And while Washington is definitely the tougher, more physical team, I think the Bruins can hang in there with them. And not get completely demolished physically, and at least stand in there and go punch for punch and just, and still be able to come out on top in this series. So I think Boston's done a fairly good job of that so far, and I hope that that can continue as this series goes along. And going right along with the physicality is our penalties, and special teams have already played a very, very important role in this series. The Bruins penalty kill had to come up huge in game number 3 because Washington had a lot of power play time in game 3. And overall, Washington in this series has had a decent amount of power play time, and Boston has done a good job for the most part on the penalty kill. The Capitals have a very, very dangerous power play. I mean, John Carlson manning the point, Ovechkin at the top of the circle, Nicholas Backstrom playing the half wall, Anthony Mantha and TJ Oshie down low. They have a very, very dangerous power play in Washington. If you give them opportunities, they are going to make you pay at some point. The Bruins have been very good on the penalty kill so far, but they need to stay out of the box because eventually that power play is going to get some pucks in the back of the net. They did score a power play goal in game 3. But it ended up, the Bruins only ended up allowing one power play goal, which given, I think it was 5 or 6 power plays in total for the Caps. I think it might have been 5. To kill off 4 or 5 against Washington's still pretty darn good. So, Boston has had some penalty troubles at points during this series. They need to stay out of the box because this Capitals power play is too good to keep them held down for too long. So that's going to play a big, big role. Now, the Bruins power play on the other side of things, and the Bruins power play has had chances as well in this series. Both teams have been taking penalties in this series. And obviously, the Bruins power play came up with a big goal late in game number 3. It was Brad Marchand's goal, which tied the game at 2. That was a huge one for Boston. However, there have been a lot of power play chances where I have not been impressed with the Bruins power play, and the Caps PK has actually gotten the better of the Bruins power play. And I think, the power play needs to be more consistent as this series and as these playoffs go along. You have to be able to count on the power play to get a big goal here and there. Now, obviously, they were able to in game number 3, but earlier in the game, they had a 5-on-3 opportunity for almost a full minute, and they weren't able to take advantage of that. So there's been some good and some not good with the Bruins power play. But I'd like to see it get better as the series goes along. But that is penalties and power play opportunities. Special teams are certainly going to play a big role here in this series, and they have already, and they're going to continue to do so as this series goes along. So, again, this is an article from Black and Gold Productions writer Joey Partridge on blackandgoldhockey.com, and just want to go through some talking points after the first two games there and see if they carried over into Game 3. And as you can see, a lot of them have. And this series has been very close. But there are a lot of things that the Bruins are doing well in this series. And they're going to need to continue to do well if they're going to win this series. So coming up next, now I want to take a look ahead to the next week of games for the Boston Bruins, which is the rest of this first round matchup against Washington. Whether it goes 5, 6, or 7 games, they will finish up this coming week, and we will know by next Friday which team is moving on and which team is going home. So coming up next, we'll take a look ahead. Okay, everybody, it is time to take a look at the week ahead for the Boston Bruins, and it is the rest of the Washington Capitals series here in the first round. We know that they've played the first 3 games. Game number 4 is coming up tonight, or when you guys will be seeing this, Friday night when this show drops. Game number 4, the Bruins will have an opportunity to take a commanding 3-1 series lead and push the Caps to the brink of elimination. Or if the Capitals are able to take Game 4, they will head back home with a 2-2 tied up series, and this series will essentially become a best of 3 in games 5, 6, and 7. Game number 5 is scheduled for Sunday night, May 23rd, 7 p.m. start time. And that could be the deciding game, or at the very least will be a very big game number 5 between the Bruins and Capitals on Sunday night. That is the only other game that we know for sure is going to happen. Game 6 and 7 are if necessary. If they are necessary, Game 6 will be taking place on Tuesday, May 25th. And obviously, when you get down that deep into the series, that would be an elimination game. And there would be the potential for that to be the last game of the series. Or if this series does go the full 7, the game number 7 will be Thursday night, May 27th. We don't have a time on game 6 or 7 yet because we don't know if they're happening or not. That game is also if necessary, but we do know that it will be Thursday night, and that would be the deciding game 7 of this series, and that is when we would find out whether the Washington Capitals or the Boston Bruins are going to be the team advancing to the second round to play either the New York Islanders or the Pittsburgh Penguins, and the other team will be going home and their season will be over. So, just some final thoughts on the Bruins-Capitals series here. This has been an absolutely phenomenal first-round matchup. It's been incredible hockey to watch. Every game through Game 3 has gone to overtime. We'll see if that trend continues with Games 4, 5, and on. But this has got to be the most evenly matched playoff series that I can remember watching, certainly in recent history, maybe ever in my life. I don't remember two teams in every single game, and not just every game, but every period of every game being as close as this Bruins and Capitals series has been. No team at any point through the first 3 games has ever had more than a 1-goal lead. The entire series so far has been either tied or a 1-goal lead for one of the teams, and that is it. They are going back and forth, up and down. Incredibly close hockey, incredibly good hockey. A lot of fun to watch, and this has just been an absolutely phenomenal series so far, and I think it's only going to get better as the intensity ramps up, as this series draws closer to the end, and every game, means more and more. And then as we get into elimination games, it's going to mean more and more. And it's been an absolutely incredible series, and I think it still is going to get better as we get later in this series. It's been a whole lot of fun to watch. The Capitals are a very, very good team. The Bruins are also a very, very good team. And if you're a hockey fan, you have to be loving every minute of what we've seen here between Washington and Boston. I know as Bruins fans, it might be a little nerve-wracking at times. You're probably on the edge of your seat a lot. You're probably biting your nails a lot, just kind of, waiting to see what happens next. You're probably a little anxious a lot of the time, but as you just sit back and watch the hockey and enjoy the hockey, this series has been as good as it gets. You could not have asked for better quality of play between these two, a more close, evenly matched series, or just a better playoff level of play so far. It's just been absolutely incredible to watch, and as a fan of the sport, it's been awesome. So, I don't really have much more to say other than that this incredible series is continuing this coming week. We know that the Bruins and Caps will be playing every other night until this series is over. Game 4 is Friday. Game 5 is Sunday. Game 6, if necessary, is Tuesday. And Game 7, if necessary, will be on Thursday night. And the Bruins and Capitals will be finishing their series this coming week, and we'll find out who moves on and who heads home. So that is going to bring us now to the end of episode 21. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Really, really appreciate it. This show would not be happening if we did not have an audience and people watching, so thank you guys so much. This show also would not be happening without Mark Allred and the entire team at Black and Gold Productions. Want to give a huge shout out and thank you to them for all of their support and everything they do here for Black and Gold Weekly. Also want to let everyone know that part of Black and Gold Productions, we have a great team of writers putting out Bruins articles each and every day, as well as an awesome podcast network with some incredible podcast shows available for listening. You can find all of that at blackandgoldhockey.com. That is, the website and the hub for everything BNG Productions. And, we'd really love to have you check that out. I also want to remind everyone of the links down in the description of the video. The top link is for Boston Bruins apparel. The second link is for NHL team apparel for whatever team you want. And third link is for NCAA college apparel, whatever college team you want to rep. They have shirts, hats, sweatshirts, hoodies, sweatpants, all long sleeves, short sleeves, all kinds of apparel, and also all kinds of accessories as well that you can get with each of those things. So a great selection of products, and if you're in the market for any of those, it would really mean a lot if you could check those links out in the description. So everybody, have a great day, have a great week. Thank you again so much for watching. I will be back for episode 22 next week, coming out on Friday as always, and hopefully we'll have a guest on for that episode. If not, it will just be me again, but there certainly will be an episode coming out, and we will know the fate of the first round of the Boston Bruins by the time we get to next episode. So with that, again, thank you guys so much. Talk to you soon, and I'll be back next week with episode 22.